Welcome back to another episode of My $1 Million Mission. We are honored to have two guests in the studio with us today, Tyler and Valerie Kukahiko. Thank you guys for being here tonight. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, no problem. I am incredibly excited to get into it today. I think we just get right into it. To start off, can you guys just give us a brief introduction into who you are and what you do?
Okay, so I guess I'll start. So I'm Tyler Kukahiko, me and my wife Valerie, and so really right now I would say we're entrepreneurs, right? And we've always been entrepreneurs. I think at heart and in our minds, really in our whole adult life, whether we recognize it or not. But the first time that both of us officially jumped into entrepreneurship was, how long ago? It was nearly 8 years ago now, 2016. Started a company together called Crust Club, which we'll talk about more here now. And, it was kind of our first foray into entrepreneurship. All the bumps and bruises took us a while, but we built that up and they were able to sell it. We were acquired by Crumbl Cookies or Crumbl Enterprises. And that was great validation for us to say, okay, we didn't know what we were doing when we jumped into it.
Worked out.
But we figured it out, and we had a nice reward. So that's who we are as far as that goes. So, Val, how about you?
I think you said it really well.
Okay.
Yeah, good job.
Awesome. So if you don't mind, if we can just hit, I guess the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
You guys sold your company to Crumbl.
Yes.
That is huge. I mean, I think just the other day I heard somebody mention that it is the most successful franchise in franchise history as far as like growth and it exploded. Can you talk about sort of what that looks like, either what you sold for or whatever? Yeah,
well, I think I don't know what we getting a juicy number. I mean, it was a multi-million-dollar buyout, and so it was it was kind of interesting on the day that we were sold or we sold to think we'd grinded for so many years and all of a sudden say, hey, we're millionaires. We always thinking, hey, we're always working for something, and to say, oh, we're millionaires. I don't feel any different, but it's nice that it's just validation for that paying off. And so that's what it was. I guess not an official number, but it was validation that we'd built something, I think, significant. And there was also some validation as far as the sell goes. They had been looking to acquire other brands, and they looked and they saw our concept. And there were a number of reasons why I think they really liked the concept. One was they loved what Val's vision was the brand. It was a great brand, the building and the products and the marketing and everything. The products were phenomenal. Every recipe is Valerie's. That's her gift, right, is to create these things. And so they saw that customers loved it. The branding was great, fit great with their brand, and their mission was the biggest thing. And then I think where I came into it, so everything that you see up front, Valerie had such a huge part in creating. But when they approached us and said, we'd like to purchase your company, then you have to open up the books, right? Yeah. And then you open up, and it's basically like, hey, look at my underwear drawer, right? Go through my clothes. And I think that's where we were equally proud because we were able to hand over everything and through all of our hard work to say, hey, this is a very clean company. We had no debt. We'd worked really hard to have no debt. We were very profitable, and the numbers showed that, this is a great company and a great decision. So from the time they met with us to the time that we sold, I think it was about a 6-week process to acquisition.
Oh, wow.
Which
it
is
really
That's fast. Yeah, that's super fast.
And so I think that's just, and I'm proud to say that it was a testament to the fact that we had tried to run a really clean company. We didn't know we were going to be acquired, but it was almost as if we were prepared for that moment. So,
awesome. Okay. There's a lot I want to get into, a lot more questions, but I want to bring Valerie into this. Let's talk just briefly about your background. So the company is Crust Club. And how long did you guys run it from when you started to sold? How long was that?
So I started it out of our house in 2016, and I was just making things and posting them on Instagram, and then Tyler was looking to maybe start something, and we just decided to do it together, and then we opened up a new location and started selling out of there, and that's how it kind of took off. So we started in 2016 out of my house. Later that year, we opened up our first location, and then we sold in October of 2022. So was that
It's about 6
6
years.
years. Yeah. It was 6 years
cow.
almost to the date. Yeah.
So it's actually a long time, and that's a whole winding story we can talk a little about as well. But, yeah.
So let's just get into your background really quickly. I did see that you were a food blogger. Is that true? Okay.
Yeah. I had a couple different food blogs that I did over the years. When Tyler and I first got married, his sister-in-law, well, my sister-in-law, she invited me to a recipe club with her, and I fell in love with it. And I didn't know anyone there, but I was just like, and they had a blog that they posted all the recipes on, and I was just like, I have to do this for myself. So I started a recipe blog, and I had a few of them over the years. And I always had these little projects and little businesses that I tried to do, and nothing ever was quite right. Nothing ever quite would stick. And then one day I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a chicken pot pie, and I'm going to just see if people will buy it. And I posted it on Instagram, and I just started having friends and family and then strangers coming to the house buying these pies.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, this could work.
This is a thing.
This is a thing. Yep.
Okay. So I know because me and my wife, a few years ago, we started like a little food thing out of our house as well. I don't think a lot of businesses really move past that stage. So how did that happen where you thought it was viable enough that you could build a brick and mortar location? And you did it in the same year, so that's quick.
Well, first we kind of went through the whole thing. We thought maybe we'll build a commercial kitchen in our basement and we'll do it all from our home. And then we quickly realized like that would be a terrible idea. Really, the only reason why we were able to do it is because of Tyler. I'm the one that has like these grand ideas, and then Tyler takes them and like actually makes them happen. So he was the one who went and found the location and had it built out, and he did all the work while working full time. So he made it happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is your background, Tyler? Just to, because it's cool that it kind of just everything seemed to combine into like a really good recipe, where it worked. So you were obviously the food side for sure. I don't know how well you can cook, Tyler, but
he's actually pretty good.
Oh yeah,
he actually makes more food now than I do. So
it's not as good as her.
It's good.
I'm not a cook, let's put it that way, but I can cook, but I don't.
Yeah. So what's your background?
Yeah, well, so really when I graduated college, I went to school here at BYU. When I graduated, I pretty much went right into real estate. I was hired by the company. So I had 11 years in real estate. And so you're like, okay, great. How did that prepare you for the food industry? And the answer is nothing.
Did not.
For it.
That's not true.
Why?
Because when we built out our location, you had you knew what you were doing.
You know what? That is very true. So there are certain aspects where it's like, oh, okay, I got this. I know how to deal with this. So, but when it came to the food production and that whole,
That's
I
true.
just had to learn everything new. So
Okay.
I would say my background is, yes, I was. When I graduated college, I really wanted to be an entrepreneur. I really did.
Yeah.
I didn't know how. And I had a great job offer, and I wrestled with that because I realized that if I took that great job offer, then I was giving up on my dream of being an entrepreneur, at least for that time. Ended up being 11 years before I realized I need to scratch that itch. Like
Yeah.
I have to do this. And so I learned a lot, obviously, in real estate and with my partners. But the serendipitous moment was when Val decided I want to sell things out of the home, and when I simultaneously said I'm ready to start something new. And I'm looking at like the tech industry or something else, right?
Yeah.
And she's selling pies, and then she's selling so many of them. And this is what happened. When you get people coming to your house, friends and family, that's one thing. When you get strangers constantly coming, that's another. Now when those strangers are constantly coming back every week to get your product again and again, that's when my eyes opened and I was like, okay, if she's just doing this little thing and people keep coming back, I know that if you can sell something to 10 people and 100 people, we can sell to 100,000 people, right? If it's good.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just said, hey, Valerie, do you really want to do this? Do you really want to run this business or do this thing? She said, yeah, I do. And I said, all right, if you want to, then let's do it. And that's when I got started and said, I didn't think that I'd be running a pie business, but my wife loves it. I see potential in it. Let's go.
Yeah.
So that was it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you actually what challenges did you face at the beginning of this whole journey?
Yeah.
One of the biggest challenges was one, not knowing what we were doing at all. Like there's a huge learning curve to commercial equipment and how to make things in mass production. But it also was Tyler was still working full time. And so, and we had 3 kids at the time. We have 4 now. And so I would go to work, and we had like 2 employees, and I was trying to run it while he was trying to run it at night. And so it was just trying to figure out how to get customers and how to run this business with our kids and with him working full time. It was crazy, but we figured it out. We made it happen.
Yeah. And for me, I think, starting a business is so exciting, right? Mm-hmm. It really is.
It is.
And everybody has this euphoria of, we're going to conquer the world. Every idea is going to work, right?
Yeah.
And we were the same, just like anybody else. And then, inevitably something will hit the fan. So for me, the biggest challenge was because I'd never been an entrepreneur on my own. I had business partners in my real estate business, but I never handled all the finances. There's a lot of things that I didn't do. Yeah. I was basically marketing and sales, business development, doing that.
Yeah.
Well, now you're in charge of it. So the biggest thing for me, and if I had any advice for people who want to be entrepreneurs, figure out the numbers within your industry that drive success. And then
that's huge.
Nail those numbers down as fast as you can and drive it into the ground. I didn't understand them. And so we're just like, great, we're selling more, people are coming. It's like, okay. But what I wasn't paying attention to was, what are the numbers that govern success in your industry?
Yeah.
Learn them, know them, live them, and then run them. Once I started to understand that, and unfortunately it took years to do it, things started to turn. And then the result was, what we saw.
Okay. Just to get a little bit into the weeds, because I love this stuff. And I think really, I think there's a ton of people out there who want to start food businesses and don't really know how. What were some of those numbers that you identified and then that you really dedicated, you really started pushing?
Yeah, well, I actually coach people on this now, and they pull out these spreadsheets.
Yeah.
They go, I got my spreadsheet, and I got all my numbers, and I'm figuring out, and I go, put the spreadsheet away. I'm like, why? I say, you got 3 numbers. You got top line revenue.
Yeah.
What is that? How much are you selling? Okay, number 1. Number 2, your cost of goods sold. It needs to just be a percentage of sales.
Yeah.
And number 3 is your labor. Again, that's just a percentage of sales.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have fixed costs. You're going to have rent. You're going to have all these other things. Just don't be stupid about overspending on those fixed costs.
Yeah.
But if you get your labor costs right, which for us was about 25%.
Okay.
And if you get your, I know you run food, so you're the same. For us, our cost of goods was 25, our labor was about 25. That's what we try to do.
Sweet.
So if you hit 50%, and you know this, you hit 50, it's really hard to not be successful if you can hit those numbers. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of how successful you be with the others. And I'm stupid up front. I'm like, I didn't understand all those things. So I'm trying to figure it out. So that's the big thing. What's your top line revenue? And then get those 2 numbers right.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier said than done. But when you do, that was it.
So in order to drive your top line, because I understand labor, I understand cost of goods, and I mean, those are pretty static. I mean, if you don't pay attention, they can get out of hand, obviously. But they're pretty static. How do you drive top line revenue? How did you drive top line revenue at the beginning with Crust Club? Or when you really saw like an uptick in business, how did you drive it? How did you do that intentionally?
Yeah, great question. Go ahead, Val.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it was just a constant grind. I feel like when we first started, me and the first person we hired, we would go around and just like take free food to places and try to get people to even notice us. And so I feel like when it really started to take off was when Tyler came full time and was able to really help us focus on our numbers and our marketing. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. So I guess I have a 2-part answer to that question.
Okay.
So I think the first part is if you're starting any business, especially with food, okay, you will know really soon whether or not you have a good product or not.
Okay, yeah.
Right? It's like, do people enjoy it? The biggest thing is, are they coming back to get it?
Mm-hmm.
And we knew it was like, this product is great. It's just how do we get it out to more people, et cetera. And so that's number 1 is don't fool yourself into saying, I think we have something great. If we can just build a bigger building, right?
Yeah.
If we can just make more food, people buy it. No. Are they buying it? Do they love it? Are they vocal about it? So that's number 1. And we had that. So I knew that it would grow that way. Number 2 is it was the same thing. What were the rules that governed the marketing, right? The growth of the business from a marketing perspective. Since we were running an e-commerce business, so we did have a warehouse location for pickup, but our concept was mainly let's do e-commerce, delivery, shipping, etc. So we were e-commerce numbers just like if you were selling clothing online.
Yeah,
we followed the same numbers, right? And so, and those are the things too which we had to learn. But again, when we understood these are the three numbers that govern the laws that govern e-commerce, if you learn those and you figured out how to tweak those, that's when we really started to take off.
That's awesome.
Is when we found those things out.
Okay. So small tangent, and then I have another question after this. Just because it was a pain point for me starting businesses, and I think it's a big issue that most entrepreneurs run into. How did you deal with pricing? Was that an issue with you guys early on, or were you confident in like charging the price that you set, or did you have to you charge too little and you had to jump it up and you had issues with that, you scale it back? Like, what did pricing look like?
Well, I mean, we just learned the hard way like everyone, but this is actually a really cool story. I think you should share, Tyler, about how we were like so wasteful and we were like, our numbers were really bad. And then Tyler just went on this little journey of lean, and we built a software system that transformed our business.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess to answer the question about pricing and this deal with lean is, so first of all, with food, what we found is we just set our number. Again, as I learned what the numbers should be like, in order to run a successful food business, you have to have X amount of percentage. Of your cost of goods need to be X amount, and your profit.
So you get your margins.
So you get margins.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to have your margins. So really, it's funny because people know. It's like, I'm buying the food for this much. If it's good quality food, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, the raw goods, right?
Yeah.
And that means that I need to charge a little bit more. And it all it's like subconsciously, the buyer knows. So I didn't charge the buyer so much that I was outside of my margins. We always stayed within our margins. And you don't make the customer eat it. This sounds funny, but they don't eat it. Like, you need to be fair with them and say, if I'm paying this much, you need to pay this much. But I'm never going to increase my margin on you. We're always going to stay at the same healthy margin, right? So if our pricing went up, then we charge the customer.
Yeah.
If it would go down, then we would bring it down for the customer. But we always stayed within that margin. So pricing was really kind of pretty simple when you follow those guidelines of don't go outside of these margins and these percentages. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So was that something that you learned afterwards through like trial and error, or was it because for me, for my businesses and stuff, with our food ones, we just picked a price that we thought sounded fair, and we realized that we weren't charging enough. Like, we weren't making any money. Now, obviously, like, we do pricing based off of percentages and having the correct margins and everything. But I think a lot of people fall into like, oh, I don't want to charge too much. This sounds like it's okay, and they don't have enough money in their business to actually have the business run.
Yeah, I think, this is when Val was saying with understanding lean, running things leaner, and hopefully this answers your question, but for us, when we found that out, when I literally just looked it up, I'm like, what should my margin be? Really, what should my margin be? What should for me, it was 25%, pretty much across the board. If it's 25%, then, this is what I need to charge. And so we always stuck with that. Now, when we were losing money, and I'll say this, I can't remember what year it was. It was like March of 2018 or something. Anyway, we had the highest sales month we've ever had, and by far. And we're like, wow, this is awesome. Oh, no. We made it. This is great. And you know where this is going. And then 2 weeks later, the P&L comes back. Yeah. And the P&L says, guess what? You worked twice as hard. Bro, you made no money.
Oh, no.
You made no money. And then even worse than that, the next month. Next month, sales dip. But you didn't work your expenses right, so now you went in the red. And now you're going, what are we doing? Enough is enough.
Yeah.
And so, those are the things, those are the trying moments where what ended up happening was we found someone and said enough is enough. We developed our own software program to manage our food COGS and to track it. And we realized that the reason why we weren't making any money is because we had so much waste. So much waste.
Yeah.
We could sell all day long. We couldn't manage the waste. So this software program managed what we ordered, when we ordered it, managed the numbers for us, gave us clarity and transparency. And when we started to use that, completely transformed our business. And we were in the black from then on, we never went back. So
and it told us exactly what we should price, because we could put a percentage in and be like, this is what you price your product at.
Perfect.
Yeah. So thank you.
Follow the numbers.
Yeah.
And that number, that's right. That number you're talking about, that's where you're going. It's like it would stare at you. It would go red when it was above 25.
Yeah.
And it would be green if it was under.
Nice.
So I could just turn on the computer and be like, oh, we're red. Oh, we're green.
Yep.
Fix this. Awesome. Okay. So, Valerie, you mentioned that he came into the business full time a little bit later. And it was an awesome thing where, business started exploding. But was there a dynamic shift when Tyler came into the business full time, with you guys being actual like business partners and being married? Were there challenges that you guys kind of discovered through that process, and how did you figure those out?
Yeah, I mean, it was really an interesting thing. We found out that we really work well together. We had our last child not long after he came and started working full time.
Awesome.
And so it was really nice having him there, because I checked out a little bit here and there because, just naturally having.
Why would you do that?
And so it was awesome having him there. But we did have to learn how to, because he is like, go, 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 go. I don't stop. And I am like, I get very high and then I get very low. Like I output a lot of energy, but then I need like a break. And so we really had to figure out not to get frustrated with each other. Like he expected me to keep going and I expected him to like pause for a second. Yeah.
Chill out.
Yeah, exactly. And so we really had to communicate and figure out, okay, this is how we work and how do we work together. And it's not ever perfect. I mean, even till this day, we have our moments, but we love it. We have a crazy relationship that this works really well with. And so I know a lot of people can't work with their spouses, but it's made our marriage stronger and better. So we love it.
Do you have any advice for people who are married, going into business, and are struggling with it? Like, do you have advice for them on maybe things that they can try, or like maybe mental shifts that could help?
Well, Tyler's got some. We both have different pieces of advice. We actually went over this a few weeks ago. My quick advice is that you have to spend time with each other, like outside of work and outside of like with your kids. You have to have weekly date night. Even if you end up talking about business, you have to have that one-on-one time where it's just you two and you can kind of step away from everything. But he's got better advice. What's your advice?
It is actually the same advice like with marriage. I mean, it's a marriage partnership is a lot the same as a business partnership. Marriages typically work because you have two people that are different, that have different strengths, right? And businesses are the same way. Me and Val are dramatically different in our strengths when it comes to business. And so we don't step on each other's toes very often because I literally can't do what she does. She could probably do what I do, but it makes her want to die, right?
It's the most boring stuff ever. I couldn't do it.
And so that's why it really works. But I know this is a cliche answer, but I think the biggest thing is just with anything, you need to have some humility, just some humble pie. And as soon as I get if I feel like I have an ego, I mean, sometimes I'll go on an ego trip or be prideful, and it just destroys everything. It destroys your team. It destroys your culture. And so for leaders that can, be true leaders, but be really humble and be willing to listen. And I think especially that goes with if your wife is your business partner, you got to be humble, because if you think you have all the answers, then you're going to find out really quick. So I think that's what I'd say.
So what are your two areas in the business? Like, what do you do, and what are your expertise as well?
Go ahead, Val.
I come up with the big, grand ideas that nobody knows how it's going to happen, and then Tyler somehow makes it happen. But I also feel like I know intuitively what the customer wants, and I feel like I know who they are and what they need. And I can look at something and be like, yep, that's it, or nope, that's not it. And so I just have like that instinct.
Huh.
Yeah, she has great intuition. But beyond that, she's a creator. You talk about creative geniuses, and that's what she is. She's a creative genius. She can create things and see things and manifest them. And I don't have any creativity when it comes to that,
Yes, you do.
But I think that she intuitively will want to do something and know that something's right. And the difference between me and her there is I'm a learner. So if I don't know something,
hit the books.
I'll hit the books.
Hit the podcasts.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. He's always got at least one or two books that he's listening to at a time.
Yeah. So I think, and I guess that'd be my advice when people are like, well, how do I, what's the secret of the universe? They're all out there. Like every book.
It's true.
Go read.
Yeah.
And you can listen to podcasts, and that's great. Listen to Audible. That's how almost 90% of the books that I've read have all been Audible. And I consider it reading because I can retain information almost better through Audible even than I have reading. And the beautiful thing is, how many books have I read doing the dishes, driving, working in the yard? I mean, a lot of books.
Yeah.
And those have changed my life because that's what I'd say. That's my gift is I'm an engaged learner. I have to learn. But when I learn those things and apply it, they work.
Yeah. Yeah. I think just to go off of what you said, I think right now we're in the information age, and it's true. Like you can find anything. The problem is people aren't executing on it. And I think that's really the separator. I mean, would you agree? Totally. I wonder how many people have wanted to start pie businesses and just never actually did it.
Well, the only reason why Crust Club was successful is because Tyler does not stop. He works harder than anyone I know, and he will do whatever it takes to figure out how to solve the problem. And so if it was on me, Crust Club would have never gone anywhere because I would be like, oh, I'm tired now and I'll do that tomorrow. Yeah. But Tyler, like, he does not stop.
So why are you like that? Crust Club, for example. So for Crust Club, for example, what drove you to like push through and just do the stuff? Because we all know that, there's a honeymoon phase with the businesses, and then all of a sudden you see the hair and you see the problems, and most people don't have the will to like push through it, especially if they, they're not clear on their vision. They don't know what it's going to look like. I assume when things got hard, you didn't know that you were going to sell it for multiple millions of dollars.
Right.
So like what drove you to keep pushing?
Well, I know Tyler, for me, and I know Tyler feels the same way. Like there was never an option to give up. It was never an option to close the doors and say we failed. I mean, and we failed every single day. Like we always had failures, but it was never like the ultimate failure of saying we're done, we're closing the doors. Yeah. And so it's like we will do whatever it takes to make it work.
Yeah, I know. I thought about that a lot, and it's like, because people, including myself, would be like, okay, am I an entrepreneur? Do I have what it takes? And it's like, of course you have what it takes, but what really separates? I remember reading. Have you read Shoe Dog, the story? So Phil Knight's story.
I've read some of it. Yeah. I don't think I finished it.
So he starts out. I mean, I'm going to butcher it, but basically he starts off by talking about how he's on a run. Okay. And the end of the first, it's the prologue, it's the foreword or something. At the end of it, basically, he says, I just basically promised myself that I was never going to stop running, right? And it was a metaphor for his business because he's a runner, and he's like, I'm just not going to stop running, today. And that always stuck with me because that's the way we felt. Is we just said, I'm never going to stop. Like, I don't care how hard it gets. And I told her, we do this. I don't care how hard it gets.
Is that the beginning?
This is that beginning. I said, we are never going to stop. We will never quit. And I can count probably 5 times where I remember going to bed at night and saying, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like if I'm done. And then I wake up in the morning and I'd say, I'm going to put my shoes on and we're going, Yeah.
And there were some crazy times. Like there was especially one time in particular that we should not have stayed in business. It was pretty bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you go into it?
Yeah. I mean, we can, we'll be quick about it. I mean, basically, so you talk about the honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
The first year in business where we opened up the actual location was really phenomenal. I mean, we didn't spend hardly any marketing dollars. It just grew by word of mouth because the product was so good.
Yeah.
And then with social media and then Instagram and social, it was so much easier to reach people then, right?
Yeah.
This is the beginning of that. And so all over the country, we had people constantly messaging in and saying, we want it, we want your product, we want your product. And so we decided, well, let's get it to them. So I'll wrap this story up quick, but basically we said, let's develop a nationwide shipping program. Let's work with a third party who does cold chain shipping. Okay. And so we can make the product, take it to them, they can store it, or they can package it up and ship it out, and we'll be golden. And so we did a marketing strategy. We launched it, and the first day it blew up, and it was amazing. And we thought we did it.
We made it.
And then come to find out a few days later, this company forgot to send out product, sent it to the wrong locations, and this is perishable goods.
Yeah.
Right? So they just dropped the ball, and then they basically sent us the bill and said, this is what you owe us. And there started the decision basically for the next few months. Do we litigate or do we try to salvage our business? And I had a really great attorney at the time, and he asked me that question, and I said, we really want we want this business to be successful. And he said, cut your losses and figure out how to pick up the pieces. So it took us about a full year to dig out of that, full 2 years to really get us to where we were. And that's why it took
financially, like it took a hit.
Yeah, in every way.
Like reputation.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, yeah.
I mean, not reputation.
Okay, good.
Because like locally, our customers still got their product. It was just all the customers out of state, and so they couldn't get our product anyway because we had to shut down shipping.
Yeah,
so,
There's a lot we had to unwind and restart, and financially, obviously, it put us in a really big bind. That we had to dig out of, and so that was the quick story.
At what point did this happen? Like in the middle of
what year was that?
Business or
no? It was a year after we had started.
Yeah, it was pretty early on.
So that first year was like awesome, and that's why I was. And keep in mind, this happened 2 months after I left my company. So I told my business partners, I'm done. Yeah. Why? Because we're going to do this, and I worked to get this nationwide shipping, and we're like, this is going to be it. And then instead of being like, boom, it was. You are screwed, and you left your job.
Oh,
what are you going to do about it?
Yeah,
and that was a gut check moment.
Yeah, that was hard. But the interesting thing is we had Tyler. Someone gave Tyler advice previous to that, and the advice was grow with the pressure. And we had these big eyes, and we're like, we knew people wanted our product nationwide, and we're like, we are going to figure out how to get to them as fast as we can, and we're like nationwide shipping. And so that's what we did. And instead of like growing with the pressure and really making sure that everything was going to work out, we were just so anxious to grow so fast that we made that huge mistake to trust another party. And that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I have is like do things in house. Like every time we outsource things, you lose quality, you lose control, and it's expensive. It's expensive and it's wasteful. We never wanted to have people make the product for us because it's just a waste. And so,
I'm convinced people, we can debate this all day long on a different podcast, right? But I'm like, people don't do things in house. They want to outsource. I'm convinced the main reason is because they do not want to do the work. Because to do things in house, you better believe it. It takes way more work up front. Sometimes it's more cost, but it's always more work. But it's what your customer demands. Because if you're going to give them a product or a service that they demand, then you got to be the one to do it because nobody else is going to care about it as much as you do. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I love that. How did you solve that problem then? Because you continued to ship.
No, we shut it off.
Oh, it was completely done.
So we came back and we just did local again. We just said, sorry, can't come to you now.
Yeah,
that's it.
That was a real kick to the gut. That was hard. Yeah.
Right? Can you imagine like sending it out, people all over the country get it? It's like, hey, psych. And so then we pivoted, and then we tried. Again, we don't need to go through we tried every business model, right?
Yeah.
And we just thought, how can we get it out to people? And we just regrouped and we slowly grew from there. So,
okay.
Yeah.
At what point did selling become an actual idea? Like
when they approached us.
And that was like in that 6-week period or whatever that you're talking about, like, or did they approach you like earlier than that?
So we, it's kind of a little bit of a longer story. So we had tried so many different ways to grow our business, and we really were trying to not open brick and mortar locations and franchise and do those kinds of things.
How come?
Because the product we're making is a difficult product. It's pies, and we didn't want to lose quality and control.
It's a lot of different. It's like family meals. It's like desserts. It's like there was a lot that went into the production of those.
Okay,
and we didn't think we could. We didn't think at the time
that it could scale at all.
Yeah. Scale.
And we wanted to make sure that our customers, no matter where they were, always had the same product. And so we really avoided it for so long. But then after COVID, and that was a whole crazy story in of itself, we realized that brick and mortar was going to be the way forward. And so we opened up our first location, and immediately it was successful. And so we're like, okay, this is our pathway forward. And so Tyler's like, we're going to have a 3-month plan of how we're going to get our books in order, and we're going to have everything perfect and ready to go, and then we're going to start franchising. And so like almost to the date of that 3 months of just making everything in order, that's when Crumbl approached us. And so it's like we were ready.
Yeah.
And so we weren't even thinking about being acquired, but they reached out to us and they're like, hey, they want to meet with you, Val. And I'm like, why? I'm like, go talk to Tyler. I don't know what you want to. And so they set up a meeting with us, and they're like, yeah, we want to acquire your company. We love what you're doing. And Tyler and I were in shock. Like, we thought, oh, maybe they want to do like a collab with us or something. We had no idea that they were calling us to acquire our company.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But it felt right. So we were like, yeah, great. So we discussed numbers, and then the offer was really good, and we said, okay, it was the right time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, how has this sale of Crust Club impacted your lives personally?
That's actually a really loaded question. It's obviously blessed our lives, but it's actually been, after the sale, it was probably the hardest year of my life right after. Yeah. You'd think like, hey, you've made it, you've done it. And it was actually the opposite for me. And so I stayed on with Crumbl and worked with them for a while, and it wasn't the right fit for me. And it was just a really hard year. And then after leaving, I had to process a lot of things. And so it wasn't until we started our next business that I really felt like I started climbing out of that hole. And I think I just needed another purpose, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, no, man, it's odd because, so when we sold, it was great initially, and then I started working on other business ideas.
Yeah.
But I didn't have anything solidified, and so it's weird, man. But not having a purpose, not carrying a load.
Yeah.
And I realized that I need to carry a load, and if I don't, then I'm just miserable.
Yeah.
And so for a while there, it was actually really hard. You look at the money in your bank account, and you're like, that's really great. But then I wake up in the morning and I don't have a load to carry. And that was tough.
Yeah.
Doesn't it sound weird?
Sounds really weird.
Sounds really weird. Yeah. You're like, so people are like, now wait, so there's no optimism here. It's like you work for it and then you get it. How it's changed our lives, though, is I'd say there's no question that having more money and resources opens up opportunities. And with the new business that we're starting now, the opportunities and the scale at which we can go with this business is significantly different than it would have been before. And so I'm incredibly grateful for the position that we're in to be able to do more and have these resources to do more. As far as, I kind of subscribe to, who Jordan Peterson is? He basically says, once you have enough money to hold off the bill collectors,
it's all the same.
Quality of life doesn't increase so much more. That's pretty true. Money gives you more opportunities, and that's what I've loved about this experience in our time right now. Is saying we don't need to worry about the bill collectors, which is nice. We also have these resources to say these big ideas that she has. Yeah, we can actually go pursue them now.
So this new thing is your idea. Your brainchild?
It's my brainchild.
Okay, can you go into it a little bit, kind of what it is?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you the story of how it came about. So I had recipe blogs, and when we were doing Crust Club, I had I have like these little whims that I go on, and one year I was like, I'm going to do a Christmas desserts recipe book, and it was like 2 months before Christmas, and I'm like, I'm going to like crank this book out, and I was crazy, and Tyler was probably not too happy about it, but I made it happen, and I made this book, and it was so much work. And when I was done, I was like, oh, great, this book is done. What if I have more Christmas desserts recipes? I never want to make a Christmas book again. It was so much work. I mean, it was great, but I never want to do it again. I'm like, so where would I put these recipes? And I'm like, I need a book that's like a living book that I can like add things to continually. Yes, exactly. And so having the experience I've had in the recipe blogging world, I know that is such an inefficient system with how it is. You have a blog that's covered in ads, and it's a really bad experience for the user. And then, you have to have so many views to even try to make some money. And it's just, you're putting in so much work to make the food, make the recipes. And then you have to like make all the content and do all the things to get eyeballs on it. And I'm like, this is such a broken system. There has to be a better way. And so I really wanted to combine the idea of physical recipes with the digital, a very good digital experience. And so what Peachie is our new business.
Awesome. And
it's going to be a platform where you can save and collect and share recipes digitally in a really functional way that's not being done right now. But then you can also order recipes on demand one at a time, so you don't have to do like a whole book. And they come, we print them. We have this high quality printer on this synthetic paper that's washable. So you can like crack an egg on it. You can spill milk on it, and then you just put it in the sink and wash it off, and it's good to go. So yeah, it's pretty cool. We've been running some different tests, and the response has been awesome.
That's great.
Yeah. When she told me the idea, and most time when I tell people about the idea, they're like, most men, not always, but most men are like, wait, I don't get it, and then most women are like, yeah, I totally get it. It's kind of, but as I started, she told me about the idea, and I did my work, which was I just do my research to be like, okay, why would people care about this? How many people care about this? What are the problems, et cetera, et cetera. And man, after about a couple of months of doing that, I saw huge potential for change, and so I was like, hey, let's do this. And so that's what got me excited. So
yeah, it's interesting. One of the pieces of research he did is that as online recipes have increased, physical recipe books have increased as well. And so people, people, you would think it wouldn't, but people are craving the physical experience. With technology being so wonderful it is, people still want that physical experience.
Yeah. So, I mean, we could talk about the business for hours, but we won't. But I think that's what we're really excited about is that we feel like there's a real need for it, and no one's done this. The big aha moment she had was with the whole physical component. How do we blend technology and the digital with the physical world? Yeah. And that's just not being done. It's not something that exists. But without getting into it too much, we feel like we've spent at least, the better part of a year figuring out the why behind that. And now when we launch next month, we'll find out. But so far, we feel really good about our chances to do it right. So,
that's awesome. I'm sure it'll blow up and be awesome.
I hope.
Okay. Kind of moving into our last section. This is more for just people that are or that were in your position, whether they want to start a business or they're in the middle of growing their business. Maybe even food bloggers, if you have advice for them. What advice would you have for somebody that is trying to start up a food business, or maybe thinking about moving into like a brick or mortar location or anything like that?
Yeah, and you mean specifically for the food industry?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Val?
Well, I know Tyler will have more advice, but I feel like, one, don't do it if it's just a hobby. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'm really good at cooking this or making this. That doesn't mean you should go into business doing it.
Okay.
And then two, I think you need to I personally feel like you need to have a really good partner who can cover what you're not able to do, because I could not imagine doing this without Tyler. And I don't know how people do businesses alone. I really don't. And so you need to be able to cover each other's blind spots, and you need to have someone who can really focus on your numbers and make sure that you're moving forward in the right direction.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of my advice is similar to Valerie's, where you have to love business. So if you're like, hey, I really want to sell food, I really want to make food, it's like, that's great. Do you love business? Yeah. And when I say, like, what does that mean? Do you love business? Do you love the aspect of the ability to market a product, right? Do you love looking at numbers and understanding what those numbers are, or do you have somebody who can do that? So all of the things that drive business, that make business successful, the numbers that you need to know, the principles that you need to follow, et cetera. I happen to love those things, and I don't know why I do. Yeah. I can't. I have no idea why.
You're a freak.
I'm a freak. But I love it. I just love it. And I would rather sit and talk business than talk sports. I would rather read a business book, than when I go on vacation, I don't want to watch a game. I want to talk about business. And it seems weird, but that's just who I am. So you got to ask yourself, I'd say, when people say, am I an entrepreneur? Ask yourself that question. When you don't have anything to think about, what are you thinking about? Yeah. And are you thinking about an idea? Does it drive you? Because if it doesn't, it's really hard. You cannot convince yourself to be interested in something that you're not interested in. And we do it all the time. Like in school. I don't want to bash school, but we lie to ourselves. Yeah, I care about this. No, you don't. You're forced to do it. What do you do? What do you think about when nobody forces you? And so if you love business, think for a minute about, do I really, like what you're doing right now, you feel compelled to do this podcast. You feel compelled. It's like, okay, who told you to do this?
Yeah, nobody.
Like, and you're here right now. That means there's something driving you that, God gave you this desire. I don't know why he did, but you're pursuing it. And so that's a really good indication of, if you have the understanding to learn those business principles, you'll be successful. Yeah. It just depends on how quickly and how long.
Okay. So I understand, you're the creative, you have the vision and everything, and you need the numbers to kind of dial in the business aspect of it and really make things run. Is the flip side true, do you think? Does like a business numbers guy need like a visionary or creative to really get a business going? Or can he do a business with just numbers?
No, I mean, from my experience, you have to have an element of both. And maybe you don't need a business partner who has all that necessarily, but you need team members who have the creative aspect because
I think your customers can tell,
Yeah. You're selling thing is if you're just a numbers guy, I think the unique thing with us is that, we're very different, but also the best piece of advice that I would say for an entrepreneur is, okay, do you have a product or service? Yeah. Okay. Begin with the customer. What does the customer want? What does the customer demand? Begin there. And what I like to say is start with the impossible. So if you're creating a product or service, start with the impossible. What does that mean? Well, and I use stupid analogies like with an airport, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's like, what would be the impossible? What would be the absolute best situation for air travel? And, I ask that question. Everybody talks about, if you could do this or this or this. And my opinion is the best air travel transportation would be a portal where I can walk through it and I'm there, right?
Yeah.
Now, you'll say that's not possible. I'm like, okay, maybe that's not possible now. Mm-hmm. Well, how close can you get to the impossible? And so my advice would be find out what would be the absolute best situation for your customer. Even if it's impossible, go up as close as you can with the resources you have to that point, and then work tirelessly to get to that impossible. You might just hit it.
Yeah.
Because Amazon's impossible. Getting a delivery the same day on whatever you want is impossible.
Yeah.
Right? No, it's not. And Jeff Bezos was just crazy enough to think, okay, that's impossible now, but 20 years from now, I'm going to make that thing possible. Mm-hmm. Well, that's business. So that's my advice.
Yeah. So did you use that framework for Crust Club, do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, we did. Getting free deliveries, getting our costs down, making it possible to get any item delivered at any time for
pies
free.
are amazing, by the way.
Well, thank you. Well, thank her, not me.
Yeah, they were.
We did the same thing with that, and we just kept. We figured out getting our costs down and delivering a better product and service to our customers, and over time, it just our business started to transform, and it transformed. In the manifestation of that was our profitability, right?
Yeah.
So those two things are related. You give them better product and service, tighten it up, and you happen to get better profits, and everybody wins. So
that's sweet. Okay, I have a question about marriage and business again. I assume you guys came to disagreements in the business. How did you resolve those?
I don't know. I feel bad for employees. There were some awkward moments that they had to deal with. I wear my emotions on my sleeve, so they knew that I was not pleased in the moment. But usually sometimes we just have to cool off for a minute, and then we just have to, it's communication. It's all about communication. And I'm the kind of person where I can't go very long in conflict. I have to resolve it or else I can't function. And so we just always had to be in constant communication, even if we're so mad at or bugged at each other. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
I have to. Yes. Yes, dear. Man. I know that's a hard question to answer. Go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off. I do have to say we have such a unique marriage. Tyler is like my built-in therapist. He just understands people, and he gets people better than most people do. And so he is really good about pausing for a moment and really assessing the situation. And like you said, he's humble. Mm-hmm. And so he could really help me figure out what was going on in the situation and come out of it. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, the only piece of advice would be, obviously we need to be humble, but I'd say just forgive fast, right?
Yeah.
Just recognize that, look, in any disagreement in business or in marriage, it's like, okay, and this is true in any disagreement, there may be a situation where I was 99% wrong, but she was at least 1% wrong, right? Like it's never 100% this person did it wrong, the other one. And so it's recognizing that, okay, the number doesn't matter. 99%, 1%, 50-50, whatever. Justice, I want justice. It's like just forgive fast and understand that if we move on from this, we can get what we really want, which is a good relationship and a good business. And so, forgive fast and move on. And we got good at doing that. And I think we still do that because we have our disagreements, but we forgive fast.
Yeah. Okay, we'll close out with this one. If there is, let's say there's somebody who has a business or they're wanting to start a business with the goal to sell, what advice do you have for that person?
I have no advice because I went into Crust Club thinking I wanted to do it forever. And so, yeah, and that's how I feel with Peachie, and I'm sure that we will sell at some point as well. But I would just say, like what Tyler said, put your customer first and really build what they need, because that's how you're going to create the most value.
Yeah, man. So if your idea is to sell,
and Tyler always wanted to sell.
I mean, I mean, it was always an
option.
Yeah, well, it wasn't even an option. It was a definite for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it was
nice.
So Crust Club was always an incubator for me.
Okay.
I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I realized that for me, I thought this would be the pathway. It was really where I wanted to cut my teeth.
Okay.
And so it just so happened that we had a good buyout, and so that was great. But I wanted to cut my teeth on that for the next big thing. And with Peachie, I believe, is the next big thing. And so the question is selling. Well, we're in that situation right now, right? And so I'm trying to think through that, because this new business we're going to start, inevitably, we know at some point we're going to sell it.
Okay.
Right? At some point we are.
Yeah, you haven't even launched it.
Haven't launched it. And
what's the thought process?
What's that? Maybe. Here we go again. I mean, yeah, maybe.
I mean, that's good. I mean, it sounds like you guys are really trying to make sure that it's good.
Yeah.
Make sure you do everything right.
My advice is you have to prepare a business as if it's going to sell, whether you plan on selling it or not.
Okay.
You have to prepare it that way. And what does that mean? Well, on the outside, you can look at businesses on the outside looking in, and their branding and their marketing, whatever else, you look at it and you can say, oh, that looks like a really great business, right? And that concept looks great. And maybe they're selling a ton. Well, those are not indicators of a healthy business, right? The indicators of a healthy business, like I can look at you right now, I don't know how healthy your heart is, right?
Yeah.
Now, the doctor can come and check out all the vitals. And if the doctor says your vitals are killer and you're really healthy, then you're healthy. Yeah. But I can't do that just by, sometimes you can look at somebody and know, sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
Business is the same way. What are your vitals? And you need to make sure that your vitals are healthy. And that, we could have a whole nother podcast about what the vitals are. The numbers are vitals, and those are critical. But your culture and your mission are your vitals as well. When somebody comes to acquire, they want to know. They will ask the lowest employee to the executives or whoever, and they'll say, how's the CEO? How is this place run? How do people feel here?
Are they that thorough?
Yeah. I mean, they'll ask. Yeah. And it's like, how do they like this? How do they like that? And so, what are your employees saying about you, right? What are they saying about how you run the business, how you treat other people, what the pay is like, et cetera? And so you got to make sure they're the vitals. And usually the health of the company will be manifested in the vitals, but what are the employees saying about the company? So.
Yeah, I don't know. I never want to sell.
Maybe we never will, but I think that's it. You always have to build as if, but the vitals have to be working.
And then real quick, just very, very last one. You talked about how clean your books were when you went to sell. It manifested into a really, really quick sell process. What do you attribute that to, that you kept your books clean?
Yeah, well, I had a controller. I wasn't skilled enough to do it, and so we hired a good controller who did a really great job of keeping that aligned. But beyond that, it was just knowledge is power. Mm-hmm. And when I really understood that, okay, these are the numbers, these are the vitals, how can I create transparency so at any moment in time, I know exactly what those numbers are? It empowered us to make the right decisions, to always keep those numbers strong. Because if you live in the fog of your business where you think you're doing well here or you think you're doing well here, you're probably not. And we lie to ourselves all the time. I lied to myself for a long time. Well, this is
justify
good.
Things.
This is good. Yeah. Don't live in the fog. Cannot live in the fog. Get really, really, really clear and build a transparency so you can say. And that's what I wanted. That's why I wanted the books to be clean, is because we wanted to sell franchises. Yeah. How am I going to sell a franchise to somebody if I'm like, how much is this going to be worth? I don't know. Why don't you buy it and you can find out after you start it?
Yeah.
And so does that make sense? That's why we did that. And it's just so happened that when they come to buy us. When they came to buy us, we already had those numbers. So.
And we were also really clean because Tyler and I were sole owners of it. We didn't have any other partners or any debt or anything like that. And so it was really easy because we could just turn it over to them, you know?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, we are out of time, but thank you so much, Tyler, Valerie. You guys are awesome. This has been so cool.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. This has been great.